Hi, so this was such a great question. Thanks for writing and sending me the photos. I think it's a definitely something that a lot of people struggle with, balance in your landscaping. So the question, just to kind of recap what I'm reading, is what if you have a path going through your garden separating into two garden beds, but one garden bed is twice as large as the other? How do you balance that landscape out when literally you're dealing with one side that's like way smaller than the other? How do you do that? Do you try to equal it out but put less plants? Do you put the same amount of plants on either side? It's a great question. Great question. So let's just take a quick look. This is the landscape that we're dealing with here. And you have a few plants already in place. This is a camellia, and sort of gets pink in the spring, I believe. It's a spring, but it's also, this is an evergreen shrub. So in the winter, it's still very dense. It keeps its leaves very dark green. This is a really heavy weight shrub as far as balancing and like the weights of plants and mass goes. So we have this to deal with. And we have the coral bark maple here, which eventually will get pretty large, 15, 20 feet high. But it will be green. I believe the bark will always be red, but I think in the spring and summer, it's more of a green, like a bright green, or even a medium green leaf. And then in the fall, it kind of changes color. And then here we have what looks like the orangeola maple, which from all the photos that I've gathered, it gets very vibrant. I believe the new growth is red when it comes out in spring. Old growth is green, so it's sort of like red and green in the spring, and then it fades more to an orange in the fall. So this is going to remain this color all year long, and this is sort of where the color problem comes in. So let's talk about the color first. So you have sort of like a pink shrub here. And you said there's some roses. I don't see them, but I think they're sort of in that area. And then we have orangeola, beautiful maple here, about 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide maybe. So let's kind of go this way. And then we have this, the coral bark, which will be, more this size, I think, when it's done. And we'll just put some red in here too, because I like to color on the computer. It's really fun. Okay, so this is sort of what we're looking at when these are mature. And the color problem is tough because this is like a really like clashy color combo right now. I don't know what else you're planning on planting, but the pink and the orange, not my favorite. I mean, you could if you like it, you can make it work. But I see that it might be problematic. But my advice is to let this stuff grow and mature before you get rid of this beautiful mature camellia, because it is an awesome shrub, and people would kill for such a mature plant. Everything else is going to take a while to grow in. So I would leave it and see how you feel as things grow. But this with the orange in the front is sort of problematic. And typically with a landscape, I'd recommend like near the border here. This would be more of uh, like a pastel-y colors, like a light pink, and then a dark like fuchsia hot pink in the back to drive people to a focal point near the end of the path, which is your front door. You want them to travel the path. So starting with like not as vibrant color near the walkway, near the sidewalk, and then going to more vibrant colors, typically what you would see. But your landscape is like popping out with the orange and the red in the foreground, and then this pink in the background. Now it may work out because it may fade. It's under an awning, it's in a shady area. It may not look as hot pink as I'm imagining it to be. So it may be okay for you. But I think that you're still going to have an issue with the vibrance back here. So I would recommend adding some color to this area in the back. whether it's like two like super bright red like pots to sort of draw the eye back from this walkway. The other option is to paint the door like a very bright orange or red even. Just something that's going to pull somebody more towards the house than what I'm seeing here, because this is a beautiful tree. This is a beautiful tree. This is beautiful, but these are closer. You want them to be able to move past that, see something beyond that. So the bright red colors at the end might help. If you do end up having to replace this, you're just not happy with it, like maybe a rhododendron or like an azalea would do well. Like azaleas are like they bloom in the same time of year, and there's also red varieties and even yellows and things like that. There's a coral color that's like a pink or like a salmon, I guess. It's like an orangey kind of cool color. So at some point you may need to eliminate this camellia, or you may need to eliminate this, the orangeola maple, or like relocate it somewhere else on your property. But I think that this combined with this is the problem. This is okay because it's in the spring, it's going to be green, so it's not that big of a deal. These two may be a problem, but like I said, I would wait for sure. Give it some time, see how you feel. As far as the balance goes, this is super heavy. It's just a super heavy shrub. Big, dense, dark, evergreen. It's like the capital D for dense of all plants. So you need to balance it on the right, which I'm not seeing yet. So my recommendation would be you're going to have to add some evergreens or something that has winter interest, like a structure. You have some like rock boulders over here. So maybe like a giant boulder or something. That would start to help, because you have to balance out this really heavy thing. So adding a boulder in the winter, that would look fine. You know, it would be there to help balance. The other option is to just do some like evergreen shrubs. So I'm thinking like in this area in the back here, something that's going to look like this in the winter. And then also you can kind of surround this coral bark. Like don't plant in front of the bark ever. When you're designing a landscape around a tree, you want the tree bark and the tree trunk to be in front. Putting the evergreens behind the maple will help that tree trunk to like pop out too, because it'll have like a nice solid background behind it. So yeah, I'd kind of recommend doing maybe some smaller ones. You could even start adding along here, just on either side of this pathway here, to balance this. So it's hard to explain this because there's really no like hard and fast rule. It's more of like a gut feeling. Does this feel balanced? Does it not feel balanced? But what helps me a little bit is, so you can see all of the green here that I've drawn. If I were to draw around this camellia, the entire size of it, and sort of fill this in, do I have the same amount of green here as I do here? And I think that I'm pretty close, as far as the size of this green. I can actually get away with a little bit more green over here if you choose an evergreen shrub that's not as dark green as the camellia. That's like a very dark, like forest green. So something like a boxwood, that's like if you did like a holly bush, that's like a darker green, but you can get an evergreen shrub that's like an emerald green arborvitae, or like something that's lighter green is not going to weigh as much. So then you can have more of it. If that makes any sense. I hope I'm making sense. But this is the balance issue here. So it actually works out well because this camellia is on the left side, which is the smaller side of your landscape. The right side, you have kind of more space. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking this smaller side here, has a big, heavy, dense shrub, but this side you have more room. So let's do smaller shrubs that'll kind of equal out. in weight eventually. Maybe you need more of them, but it's going to equal this out. So this side doesn't need as many plantings. This side needs a little bit more plantings, and that's kind of how I would approach that. So I hope that helps. And the other thing I would just say is when you're trying to figure this out with like a gut feeling, I would recommend, it looks like you're probably entering your property along the driveway when you get out of your car. So right in here. So number one, make sure that you're balancing left and right of this as well. Left and right of the walkway here. Because you're going to be entering there. So you're going to need to make sure that that's balanced as well. And the other thing I'd recommend is whenever possible, try getting out of the car and walking down the sidewalk and entering the property here, so that you can get the same view. Even where you're standing to take this photo is a good spot. It's going to give you the same perception as somebody passing by, driving by, walking by would see of your house. And it's amazing. Like, we just sort of make our own little paths to our house, like from our driveway or whatever, but that's really not where people are viewing our landscape from. So if you can get yourself in the habit of just walking that way and sort of just standing there for a second, taking a look at what other people are seeing, and you're going to start to get the hang of, or get a feeling for what feels heavy, what doesn't, and just kind of go from there. So that's my advice. Add some more evergreen shrubs on the right to balance out the camellia. Wait maybe a year before you decide what to do with the camellia. If you do have to replace it, try an azalea, hydrangea. Something that's going to do well in the shade under that awning is tough. So because that's really thriving there, I would try not to remove it. The other option is to leave it as is, or remove the orangeola maple, put that in the backyard or somewhere else where you can enjoy it. But add a pop of color too near the door, something vibrant that's going to guide the eye towards your front door. 2 red pots, a red door, something bright down there, a flag even. That's going to kind of attract people to go through to the door of your landscape rather than standing back. Hope that helps, and thanks for writing me, and I hope to hear from you soon.